Welcome everybody to another episode of Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar series brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. And today's topic that we're going to be talking about is financial literacy for women. And we've got a special guest who we'll introduce in a second. We can go to the next slide. Just quick little housekeeping on this. Just know the event's recorded, so everything is muted, all the cameras are off. There is a chat box feature, though, that you can use if you do have questions that we're happy to drop in. You know, you can ignore the flashing screen behind me, but it's just trying to keep up with everything. I will introduce my co-pilot in a second, who will try to keep me on pace with all of this. If you can, to the next screen. Real quick, my name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the Aries Foundation. I have been in financial services for just about 24 years now. I'm an investment advisor. That means that I act as a fiduciary whenever giving guidance and advice to any of my clients. I want to bring my vice president, Craig. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the Aries Foundation. I've been in financial services a little over 18 years now. And I specialize in working with families and small businesses to help them define their goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And Craig will be chiming in as we go along. You can go to the next slide. There's a lot of words on this screen. So this weekly webinar series is brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. I jumped ahead of myself there. See, I'm trying to get to the booze. That's what's going on. You can visit our website. It's www.ariesfoundation.org. Just know the mission behind Aries is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with money. And just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and emotional triggers that cause us to act, well, irrationally sometimes when it comes to our money and our finances. So that's all Aries, myself, Craig, the rest of the team tries to do is help get a little bit of guidance to get control of that. Now we can go to the next screen with all the words that just know we're a nonprofit. We do this for education. We do it for information. All we ever ask is that you share it. If you share it, you share it that way as an educational piece. We do suggest and strongly recommend that if you ever have questions regarding finance, tax, or legal, that you seek out the help of a professional. Next slide. Thank God I got through all of that in terms of dealing with it. So this is called Think with a Drink because some of the topics, some of the things that we're covering get a little dark, get a little heavy. What Craig and I and the rest of the team try to do is have it be a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed. And for today we are drinking, this is a Lemonade Shandy from Goose Island. Well, all of you can pour and enjoy this. So Shandy, more of a summertime type of thing. Just know that if you were looking to pair this with some food, you'd probably look at maybe like a lighter, like a Fisher type of thing, but with some spice, right? You're looking for something to offset that. So maybe like fish tacos. That would be a good choice to have.
Fish tacos, yes.
With the Lemonade Shandy. So we'll say Skål.
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 Ooh.
Next slide.
There's a lot of lemon in there.
That's a definitely lemon. So we're going to introduce our guest in a second, and then we're going to just talk to, her name is Danielle, and she'll introduce herself. We're going to ask her some questions about women and money matters and financial literacy for women. So why don't we go to the next slide, and Danielle, if you just want to, you can just introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are and your experience. Please, next slide.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity. So I'm Danielle Piskado, and I'm the executive director at Women's Money Matters, formerly Budget Buddies. And so I am originally a Vermonter. I went to the University of Vermont, spent some time out in San Diego as a financial analyst, and then decided at some point that I wanted to take those financial skills and apply them to the microfinance industry. So I spent time living abroad in China and in India, and came back to the Boston area for grad school, where I studied business and public policy, and spent the first decade after grad school working in microfinance internationally, and then was volunteering heavily with what was then Budget Buddies, and just was really drawn to the mission and the model and the impact. And so
let's talk about that. So next slide, if you can, just to introduce what is now Women's Money Matters.
Yep.
So next slide on that, which just tell us a little bit about the organization and really what the mission is behind.
Yeah, so Our mission is to improve the financial wellness and stability of women who are living on low incomes in our community. We do that using a unique model that brings together intentionally small cohorts of women who are facing similar financial challenges and matches every woman that comes into our program with a volunteer coach. So each woman is matched one-to-one with her own coach who is just there to support her goals and her, financial well-being. And then they go to a series of financial wellness workshops together that take place over 3 months.
So the coach is with them every step of the way?
With them every step of the way.
That's
At the
interesting.
workshops, we do breakout sessions. They're talking about what they're learning and applying that to each woman's goal and unique financial situation.
Okay, so let's start with the idea of financial literacy. Like, what are the most important topics for women for
Yes.
financial literacy?
Yeah, great question. So a couple of the topics that we are sure to cover in our workshops, because they do have specific implications for women, are planning and saving for retirement, because as research shows, women live longer. It's an important thing to be focused on. We do a lot of time on understanding and building your credit score. So that is still a really important determinant for many women. Impacts rates that they get on financing, and so that's one that we focus on a lot, really the nuances of what goes into and impacts your credit score and how to build that. We do touch on, funding education, whether that's trainings or different, types of education.
So when you say education, is that for themselves or for like children type of thing?
It's both.
Okay.
And actually a number of our programs are with teen moms, and so we are sort of looking at both sides of how can you sort of say, think about your furthering and advancing your own skills and knowledge while also, looking into sort of the options that exist for saving for a child's education. But really, education, and I would say also we have a focus on home buying as well as sort of a couple of the keys to really breaking that intergenerational poverty that we see a lot. And increasingly another topic that we focus on in our programs is understanding and protecting yourself against different forms of fraud, because that's a very
I think that's a big thing now.
a big thing now. It's really sophisticated, and especially with a lot of the newcomers that are in our programs are sort of specifically targeted in many instances for different types of fraud. So we focus on that as well.
So that's great. And so how could sort of in general, a woman take a more active role in her personal financial management, right?
Yeah.
So what are some steps there?
Yeah, so actually, research shows that women do manage 70% of the family finances, and so they're already really doing it in many ways. But I would say that definitely the key to the place to start is in really tracking and understanding, where your money is going and what are your sources of income. And so there's a number of apps out there, Mint, you Need a Budget, that can help with that sort of really understanding where the ins and the coming ins and going outs of your
That's part of what we do
money.
with everybody. We have that conversation all the time about understanding, like we talk about, because one of the things that gets us is always about budgeting, right? It's like I don't want to use the word hate, but so don't understand. It's not hate. I just don't like the word budget. So
Yep.
for us,
Strongly dislike.
Yes, there you go. I strongly dislike. We try not to use the word because it's really about where you spend your money.
Yes.
And so it's trying to help people sort of get a sense of that, where you're spending your money.
Yes. And we dislike that term enough that we rebranded because of it, because we did feel we go way beyond budgeting, and that is an anxiety-producing term that makes people
absolutely, yeah.
want to sort of zone out of it. But we call it a spending plan or a savings plan because it's about understanding also your why, right? Like clarifying your goals. What are your financial goals? That's a lot of what financial planners help with, and in our cases, our coaches. Really, what are you saving for? What will being financially, feeling that financial well-being, like what will that do for you emotionally, mentally, and in terms of your relationship
it's
with
a
money?
big thing for us as well, is trying to drive to that why, right? Why, not only like you said, what are you saving for, but Craig, but the idea is like, why are you doing something, Like what's that? Because a lot of times we run
Yes.
into it that you have a family, whether it's what, how mom and dad raised you, right,
Yes.
just dealing with money type of thing.
Absolutely. I loved your introduction because that's exactly it. It's about changing that relationship with money, but also understanding the sometimes, not productive thoughts and or actions that kind of go into.
Well, one thing I've found too, especially with people who are maybe just starting out or living paycheck to paycheck, or like you said, that teen mom who's really
Yeah.
trying to get a grip on it, is they don't even allow themselves to think about what I want, what would be a goal. The goal is, can I pay my bills this month?
Day to day, paycheck to paycheck.
Right, and how do I manage that? How do I have a little bit more money at the end of my month as opposed to more month at the end of my money, as Tom likes to say, right? So I think part of that is trying to get people past, even people who now have making some money,
Yep.
they won't allow themselves to think larger because they've been so used to trying to scrimp and scrape and get by and put it away.
Absolutely.
So is it really, I see that with men, but I see with us in planning, more and more women taking the planning route. They want to know more about the plan,
Yeah.
not just the product or what's an IRA or this. They want to know what's the end result.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of that in what you guys are doing, and how do you kind of bring them from that basic, I'm starting off, to I can see a bigger vision?
Yeah, well, great term that you just used, because what we start off with is a vision board. And that is a really key, we don't even talk about the spending plan or savings plan until 4 workshops in, because up until then, it's about building the relationship between the coaches and the participants, and it's about building that vision. So the vision board is like a really emotional exercise for
Sure.
both, coaches and participants they do it together, but, the commonalities there are often just, I want security for my family, safe neighborhoods, safe, good schools. It's like there's so much that kind of brings us together as human beings in terms of what we want our money to do for us. And so that vision board is exactly that opportunity to really, when you picture it, there's something powerful about that then allows you to really see it. and
So
do
just
it.
let me ask you on that with the
Yeah.
vision board, is that something that then they carry with them through the program type of thing?
And beyond.
Okay,
I was
yeah.
fortunate enough to just go to a Habitat for Humanity, dedication and blessing in Concord, and it was one of their prized items that they unpacked first in their new home and had it out on their bureau, and it was so emotional for me, because there it was being a homeowner and was prominent on this vision board, and they had just been checking off sort of a number of those items, and it was
That's great.
front and center on their
Yeah,
on their
Tom and I
bureau.
talk about that a lot, the fact that, the purpose gets you past the motivation.
Yes.
Motivation only carries you so far. Having
Yes.
that purpose, or like you said, your vision, is what actually makes you get up and say, okay, I can do this again today.
Yeah. Not always easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so do you feel there's enough being done right now for women, for financial literacy? Where do you see that falling?
Yeah. So good question. Generally, no. I would say, we're kind of one of the only groups that sort of is in our area focusing on women, especially women on low incomes. We're seeing more of it, Fidelity has kind of a Women Talk series that they're doing. I think it's a huge missed opportunity if people aren't focused on this. From what I understand, there's supposed to be a huge generational wealth transfer
Oh, there will
to
be, yes.
mostly women, and therefore, there should, financial advisors everywhere should be thinking about the unique ways that women think about and manage their money.
Well, here's a good question, because Tom and I are obviously male advisors, and as we look at our industry, most advisors tend to be male, right? It's male dominated, but women, I imagine, talk about money a little differently than we do.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about how do women talk to one another about money?
Yeah. It's a really good question, and it's so nuanced, because it's not just even genderized. There's cultural aspects to it as well,
sure,
right?
right.
Different cultures have different ways, and so I think there's sort of acceptable topics of groceries are really expensive right now, or how and maybe things that you're savings for, how you want to sort of big projects, but generally it's not a topic that is often acceptable to talk about. So that's one of the biggest things that we do in our workshops, is just create a safe space where it's not only the purpose to talk about money, it's encouraged, right? And there's no there's no question that we're going to judge. There's no judgment. It's all about just like, we all know this isn't, you know, taught uniformly through an our K to 12 education. So we're here to help answer any questions you may have and just create that safe space.
But it's not taught uniformly. That's the problem, right? I mean, where are you getting the information from? And then, like we have found, even, you know, whether it's not gender-based, there's a lot of shame and guilt that can come into dealing with money. I handled that poorly, or my relative did it better than I did, and you're supposed to have this all together. And I think you're right. Even when we talk to clients, it's about, all right, whatever you did in the past is the past. I haven't met anybody who hasn't made financial mistakes. It's about missteps.
Learning moments.
That was a misstep. So on my part. So how do you proceed forward from here? It's just about, now it's just about looking forward. What do you do? Can't worry about what you didn't know. Now it's about what do you know, and how can we move forward?
And sometimes unlearning, like you said, the kind of lessons that you may have gotten from your parents, or you know, there's a lot of, like, if you don't have some mentor in that role, it's like you're kind of on your own to figure it out. It can be really intimidating.
So do you think and sort of going on that level, right, of like a challenge or barrier, that women have more of a challenge with that than say men do, type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of financial barriers that are unique to women, and why you know, we focus on women. Some of the main ones that I'll point out are, you know, the pay inequity that persists, and just what that means in terms of being able to really, you know, not being able to pay down debt as quickly, so therefore paying more interest. You know, having that emergency fund, which, you know, we just saw during COVID how important it was when you lost income on a dime, to be able to have that available. So that impacts women's finance in a number of ways. But beyond that, you know, there are unfortunately still biases. Like, there's research that shows, like, for every child that a woman has, her pay will drop by 4%. For every child a man has, his will increase by 6%. So these are still, like, systemic stereotypes that impact women's finances on a much larger scale.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because we had a previous guest on. Now just blanked on her name, of course, the one from Nichols College, who the presentation on all about being in the workplace, right? So women in the workplace, and the fact that
I hope she's not watching and you forget.
Yeah, I know. It'll come to me, you know, and this is one of those. Look, I'm drinking.
And this is only our first year, right?
But what happens there is that a lot of times women are not advocating for themselves as much as men do. Like her research, her studies were showing that, you know, a guy will just throw his name in the hat just for the heck of it, you know, whether he's qualified or not. Where a woman will actually stay back and take longer to make sure she's got like every box checked type of thing. Is that what you find with that?
I mean, in terms of the workplace, there's research that shows, yes, like men will apply if they meet 70% of the criteria, where women want to meet like 100. But but really, what I've read, and you know, I defer to this woman who may be more of an expert than I am, is that women are also perceived differently when they negotiate on their own behalf, right? And so there's sort of this bias that they face right there, and it's not that they're not as good at it, it's that they realize that they may be judged for doing so. And so some of the trends that we've seen are, you know, posting the salary range right within JDs, so it's like less negotiable, right? It's kind of, you know, understood in advance what the range would be. There's legislation that now prevents like employers from asking about previous salary, because that can kind of keep you, you know, trapped in lower paying jobs. So there's things that can be done to combat those biases.
And I know that there can be male gender bias. We talk about that towards women, right? What about bias of women towards other women who are aggressive?
Oh, it's amazing. Bias is gender neutral. Like there's you know, the implicit bias work that Harvard has done, there's surveys out there that you can go online and test your own biases. And, you know, I've done it with lean in circles where we're amazed that they exist regardless of gender. You know, it's because we're all culturalized into the same
Well, a lot of it is, I
society,
think, too,
right?
is, the insecurity of they have what I want, or they're being what I want to be, and so they must be a bad person because I should be that person. I mean, it's that kind of bias you have against anybody who's maybe more successful than you are,
Yeah.
that you kind of try to pull them back. And I think that's even, when women who are really trying to achieve and get what they deserve in the workplace,
Yeah.
and you have other people in their own gender holding them back.
Yeah.
I think you have like a double whammy there.
Yeah.
You're feeling male and female bias.
But still, like, overwhelmingly, like, there are more CEOs named John and Dave than
Yes.
there are females.
Right.
There's overwhelmingly men on board. So it's, the policies and the biases around pay equity and other kind of like workplace norms that impact women's finances, like, have to be looked at a leadership level, right? And
That comes down to different things.
Yeah.
So let's bring it
Yeah.
out of the workplace.
Okay.
Let's bring it into
Personal, yeah.
either the personal or into the home or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I know, like you mentioned, there is this. I don't want to call it anything in terms of having that conversation about money.
Yep.
And I know you mentioned it and trying to develop that and open it. It's
Yeah.
something that we talk about with people all the time.
Yep.
Like how does a woman specifically start that dialogue or begin that conversation about money?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting topic. I mean, there are online forums that are surprisingly like good resources for women to go to get. There's like a Ladies Get Paid that's like a very active circle where you can kind of go and get questions to answers. And so I feel like that is sometimes maybe just because it's an anonymous sort of feeling to an online platform that you can get responses and answers. But I think that anyone can really do that vision boarding or goal setting within their own household and sort of say, like, with whoever, we see moms talking to their kids about it, right? Like, this is what we're saving for. And, we want to have stable housing. And in order to do that, we're going to buy off brand. We're going to, really think about wants versus needs. And do we need it or do we want it? And so there's
a big part.
There's
Yeah.
really a lot of ways that you can going and attending like the many webinars out there, like that can be really thought-provoking and conversation starting within any kind of
Yeah, it's interesting. We're actually, doing one and coming up soon with an organization with a company where it's ways we think about money, but it's sort of that parent conversation with the teen, right? To sort of give that like different ways to have that and develop that conversation and it's interesting because it's hard for people to do. They're really not sure about it, So, for somebody who's watching today, what are some steps? What are some things that somebody could consider doing or taking if they wanted to get started on that journey?
Yeah. Those are great questions. I would say to really start with that why, right? Like really think about your goals. What are you saving for? And, and the vision board, like there's a lot of tools out there that you can do that even yourself. But then the tracking, downloading an app or looking, if your bank has that available, but really starting to kind of track your finances and sort of have a better understanding of where money is going and where there might be areas to save. And I mean, those are the places to start for sure.
Yeah, and so with that, because it's one of the things that we bring up all the time with the whole idea of tracking, because not that there's an issue with the apps, but
No, sure.
but the apps don't track everything, unfortunately, for
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
times. And we have these, as Craig always likes to say, you push the button and the thing shows up on your doorstep the next day, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's more or less getting a handle on where you're trying to go with that. And so like you mentioned the vision board a couple of times, and I love the concept, I love the idea of it, but how could somebody like on their own, like is it just that I want to save for, whether it's a vacation next year,
Yeah.
whether it's a new car, whatever the case may be, that's where they're sort of building that out?
And then, like, I guess it's from the vision board into the like goal setting template, right? Which is also widely available online. Like, we use kind of the SMART goals of like breaking it down into what are the actionable steps.
Right.
And that's where, you kind of, the rubber hits the road. And
Well, and it's funny because that's for us. That's
Understanding
where,
how it blends.
and that's where we come in because that's part of what we do with Aries, right? So part of what Aries does is we try to help everybody sort of have that where that rubber meets the road, right? The idea is where is that road? Where are you trying to get to, and how are you going to get there? That's really what we try to do. You know, part of that is we offer everybody what we call the roadmap to financial awesomeness. The roadmap to financial awesomeness is a visual tool that sort of gives you that outline of where you are today and then where you want to get to. And so before we wrap this up, Danielle, if somebody wants to get a hold of you
Yes.
or Women Money Matters,
Yeah.
where would they go? How would they do that?
Yeah, they can go to our website, womensmoneymatters.org, and the contact information is there to contact us. We are, very active in checking our website inquiries, so that's probably the best way to
So if somebody
get a hold of
wanted to
us.
sign up, is that something that's open all the time, or
Yes,
is that
our programs are we always have new programs starting.
Okay.
So women who, are eligible to join a program can sign up directly from our website. You can refer women to us. If you know someone who is living on a low income and looking for financial support, they can sign up, right through our website. If you want to volunteer with us as a coach, it's a very worthwhile effort. That also, there's an application on our website that's very short, and you can.
And is
get
there a
involved
cost
there.
involved?
No cost. It will never be a cost to a woman who needs our support.
So like we would just say, if you
commitment we
need a
have.
coach, and everybody needs a coach, right? You go into
Yes.
fitness, you go, even Tom Brady has a coach, right? Then you should reach out and get that coach.
Our resources are specifically for women who are living on low incomes.
Right.
So so yes, any
So
woman
not
that's
Tom Brady?
Not
So
Tom
not
Brady?
Tom Brady,
He might
not
be living on low
Giselle.
income soon, right?
but yes, I mean that's what we're trying to do, is sort of democratize that access to.
Terrific. So
financial
we
coaching.
certainly appreciate it. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks for
Appreciate that everything that Money Matters does. So we're going to wrap this up. So if you ever have questions for us, you can do the same. You can reach out to our website. That's www.ariesfoundation.org. You can go, or you can shoot us an email. It's info@ariesfoundation.org. We're happy to answer any questions. We're always here. We're always available. Like we said, we want to say again, thank you to
Yes,
Danielle
thank
and
you.
the Women Money Matters.
having me.
That is terrific, and it's a wonderful organization. And we are going to say thanks and have a great rest of the day.
Just seeing, how excited she was about wanting to help me, I am glad that I changed my mind. I've had someone to encourage me and, help me believe in myself.
Unfortunately, in high school, they don't really teach you much about financial literacy or anything like that. They just don't really they kind of referenced it a little bit, but not too much where people understood what they were talking about. So I was just I don't know how to make a budget, because I feel my costs were running very high, and I didn't know why, or how to budget correctly or anything like that.
Learned how to budget money and make a budget. Learned how to grocery shop frugally. Set up a bank account, learn about the different bank accounts.
Our budget looks different than most people's. We are always that family that could live somewhere until we couldn't afford it, and then we'd have to move again. And to be honest, we didn't know how long we would be able to stay where we are. And this opportunity came up, and it has given us a chance to plant our roots. We can finally take a breath and know that our kids can stay.